Welcome to Simple Things, where small stories spark big changes and growth begins with honesty. It started with the towel rack. A cold morning in early spring, Dean stood in front of his bathroom mirror, shirtless, waiting for the hot water to steam up the glass and blur the image he hated most, his own. But that morning the mirror stayed clear, cruelly honest. His ribs showed like prison bars. His collarbone looked carved by grief, and his shoulders, they hung like apologies. The towel rack behind him, crooked and slightly rusted, seemed broader than his entire frame. That was the moment it clicked. He wasn't just skinny. He was invisible. Dean had been small his whole life, genetically, quietly, relentlessly small. The kind of guy people pat on the back like a kid. You eat enough, buddy, they'd laugh. Or worse. Damn, I wish I had your metabolism. As if being underweight was some kind of prize. As if feeling like you could be swept away by a strong wind was desirable. As if the way your hoodie hung like a ghost costume wasn't a daily reminder that you didn't take up enough space in this world. But Dean wasn't stupid. He knew this wasn't life-threatening. He wasn't malnourished. He wasn't sick. And he wasn't trying to impress anyone with muscle mass or aesthetic gains. No, it was deeper, simpler, sadder. Dean wanted to feel real. He wanted to walk into a room and believe that people saw him. He wanted to fill out a t-shirt without feeling like a scarecrow. He wanted to go on dates without worrying if his wrists looked feminine or his arms too thin to be comforting. He wanted to carry his own damn grocery bags and not have strangers ask if he needed help. Most of all, he wanted to feel strong, not for others, but for himself. And yet, he was afraid. Afraid of the gym. Afraid of being judged. Afraid of walking in and seeing those steel machines like monsters ready to laugh at him. What did he know about reps or macros or bulking cycles? What if people stared? What if they didn't? So he did what most of us do when we feel lost. He opened Reddit. His post was hesitant, uncertain, but it was raw. I'm tired of being the skinny guy. I'm 22, 5'10", 117 lbs. I know that's bad. I've always been like this. I eat a lot, but I've never trained, never lifted. I don't know where to begin. I don't even know what's realistic. I want to change. I want to feel solid. Can someone tell me how he expected silence, or worse, cruelty? But the replies flooded in. One said, brother, I was 6'2" and 130 kilograms at 20. I feel you. 5 years later, I'm at 175. You can do it. The key is consistency. Another. You need a plan. You need food. You need sleep. But mostly, you need patience. Don't be afraid of the gym. Everyone starts somewhere, and one reply hit him hardest. No one cares that you're skinny. They care if you try. Walk in, do your sets, headphones on, grind quietly, grow loudly. Dean read those words over and over. Grind quietly, grow loudly. Something in him shifted. Maybe, just maybe, he could. And so with shaking hands and a heart racing faster than any treadmill, Dean picked up a pen and wrote 3 words on his bathroom mirror, "This ends now." That was the first day. The day he decided to change not just his body, but his story. And change, as Dean would soon learn, isn't sculpted in muscle. It begins in the silence between the self-loathing and the first small act of self-respect, a fork of peanut butter, a slow, imperfect push-up, a commitment not to give up even when everything still hurts. And the pain was coming, but so was the breakthrough. Dean's first gym session was a comedy of errors. If comedy meant shame served cold with fluorescent lighting, he arrived in a baggy sweatshirt, hood up, eyes down. The kind of hoodie that whispered, Don't look at me even as it swallowed his frame whole. He had no idea where to go, what to do, or who to ask. The gym smelled like rubber and iron and sweat thick with the scent of certainty of people who belonged. He clearly did not. The first machine he sat on was a leg curl, which he mistook for a chest press. He pulled the bar toward his ribcage, grunting quietly before a kind, middle-aged guy walked by and gently corrected him with a chuckle. "Hey, man, that's for hamstrings, but A for effort." Dean laughed it off, but it burned. Inside it burned. He didn't feel strong. He didn't even feel like a person trying to get strong. He felt like a fraud, a stick figure doodle lost in a room full of sculptures. Every glance imagined or real felt like judgment. His skin crawled with the pressure of not knowing how to exist there. He left after 20 minutes, sat in his car, gripped the steering wheel, and cried, not a meltdown. Not the cinematic sobbing in the rain type of tears. Just a quiet hollow leaking like air slowly leaving a balloon. A sadness not born of weakness but of wanting, desperately wanting to be more than what you've always been told you are. He could have quit there. He almost did. But something strange happened later that night. He got hungry. Not physically, but spiritually. He opened Reddit again. Not to post, just to scroll. He found one comment tucked deep in a thread. The gym isn't a stage. It's a workshop. No one's watching. We're all just building. Dean read it 3 times. Workshop. Not a performance. That word changed everything. So the next day he returned. Same hoodie, same fear. But this time, he brought a plan. Work out a squat bench row, workout B, deadlift overhead, press pull-up assisted God help him, 3 times a week, alternating, simple, brutal, humbling. He downloaded a calorie tracker, bought a kitchen scale, prepped chicken, rice, eggs, peanut butter, bananas, oats, basic boring fuel, and he lifted, badly, but consistently. 1 month in, he gained 3 pounds, hardly noticeable. 2 months in, he benched the bar plus 10s. 3 months in, he finally pulled his first unassisted pull-up. It took 11 shaky seconds. He fell off the bar with a grin. He went home that day and stared in the mirror. Still skinny, still narrow, but not invisible anymore. There was a glint in his eyes he hadn't seen since high school, a spark of ownership, of quiet pride. But pride is a fragile thing, and self-doubt. It waits for the moment you think you're safe. So when his college roommate saw Dean shirtless and laughed, "Dude, you finally growing biceps, took you long enough." It hit him harder than any deadlift ever could. Suddenly, he was back in the mirror again. Back under the weight of not being enough. Back inside the fragile shell of why even try. And in that moment, Dean stood on the edge of 2 futures. The one where he fades back into hiding, shrinks into old habits. And the one where he decides that the voice of an insecure roommate means nothing compared to the voice inside him saying, "Keep going." So what did Dean do? He picked up his notebook, logged his workout, upped the weight, and whispered, "Not today." Because growth doesn't ask for permission. It just demands you show up, even when your hands shake, even when you're sore, even when you're not sure it's working, especially then. By month 6, Dean had gained 12 pounds. Not all of it was clean muscle. There was a softness to his waist now, a gentle roundness under the shirt that he hadn't expected and hadn't planned for. His jeans fit differently. His face looked fuller in photos. Some days he felt stronger than ever. Other days he felt lost again. Because here's the secret they don't tell you in gym motivation videos: changing your body changes your identity. And identity doesn't always go down without a fight. Dean found himself in a strange limbo. He wasn't the skinny guy anymore, not exactly, but he wasn't strong either. Not yet. He was somewhere in between, caught in a shape he didn't fully recognize. And in that in-between space, something began to break. It wasn't physical. His deadlifts were going up. His arms filled sleeves. Even his posture changed, shoulders back, chin higher. No, what broke was mental. It started with a skip session, then two. Then a week where he didn't track calories. Then a weekend binge of fast food and Netflix, followed by a wave of guilt so deep it almost made him sick. One night, standing in front of the mirror, the same mirror that used to taunt him, Dean muttered aloud, "I don't know who I am anymore." He didn't say it dramatically. He said it like a fact, and that scared him. Because the entire reason he had started this journey was to find himself, not to lose whatever fragile identity had been keeping him upright this whole time. So he did something unexpected. He called his sister. They weren't particularly close. Childhood had placed them in different emotional galaxies, but she had always been the grounded one, the one who knew how to name things. She answered on the second ring. He didn't say much. Just, "I think I'm failing." She paused, then said, "Good. That means you're in the middle of it." He frowned. "Middle of what change?" she said. "It's messy, Dean. It's not linear. It doesn't feel like a Rocky montage. It feels like hell. But that's how you know you're not pretending anymore." They stayed silent on the line together for a long while. Then she added softly, "The old you is dying. That's why it hurts so much." He hung up the phone with wet eyes. The next morning, Dean walked to the gym. No hoodie, no headphones, just him. He didn't go to train. He went to watch. He stood near the squat rack and observed the big guys, the newbies, the quiet lifters who moved like machines, the girls who deadlifted more than he benched, the old man in the corner with chalk-stained knees and a heart full of war stories. And Dean realized something he had never seen before. No one here was finished. No one here was perfect. They were all in transition. Every rep, every set, every drop of sweat, they were sculpting who they were becoming. And Dean, he was one of them. He wasn't alone. He never had been. That night, he didn't go home and cry. He went home and cooked. Lean beef rice, broccoli olive oil, weighed and logged, quiet and steady. Then he opened his notebook and wrote, "The day I felt weakest was the day I became strongest, because I didn't quit. And because I finally understood this isn't about muscle, it's about becoming." Dean wasn't chasing a body anymore. He was chasing a life. And for the first time, the goal wasn't to be seen, it was to be felt by himself, from the inside out. And the next morning he trained. Harder, heavier, with a fire he couldn't name, because something was rising in him. Not just strength, but conviction. Dean stopped looking at the scale. At first, this terrified him. The number had been his only evidence, his proof of transformation, his ritual. Every Sunday morning before breakfast, he would step on it like it held some sacred truth. Am I closer to being real? But one morning, 7 months in, he stood barefoot in the bathroom and stared down at the black glass. The number was irrelevant now. His reflection told the story better. His back had widened. His traps were rising. His forearms had veins that used to be invisible. His hands looked like they belonged to someone who worked, not someone who observed. And his eyes had finally stopped flinching. Dean wasn't big. He wasn't cut. He didn't look like the athletes on Instagram, but he had something more valuable than aesthetics. He had ownership. He had come face to face with every part of himself he hated, his fear, his shame, his silence, and instead of running, he stayed. He lifted. He fed himself. He rebuilt rep by rep, calorie by calorie, day by stubborn day. Still, the world doesn't always celebrate quiet victories. In fact, sometimes it resists them. Like the night Dean saw his old friends again, A reunion, drinks, laughter, the kind that softens your chest and hardens your insecurities. They hadn't seen him in months. Some gave polite compliments. "You're looking good, man." But one half-drunk and smirking said what Dean feared most. "Bro, you're trying way too hard. You're still small. Just accept it." The old Dean would have nodded, smiled, swallowed the poison with a joke. But the new Dean just tilted his head and smiled, not from weakness but from clarity. "Yeah," he said, "and I still show up. Every day. What do you do?" It wasn't angry. It wasn't cruel. It was a line spoken with the weight of months under iron and the silence of lonely mornings filled with intentional effort. The kind of reply that doesn't need to be defended. It exists because it is true. And in that moment, something solidified inside Dean. He no longer needed approval, or validation, or the illusion of arrival. Because he wasn't after an end, he was inside a becoming. He started helping others online, commenting on posts that sounded like his old voice. "I'm 5'11" and 115. I eat but can't gain. I want to lift but I'm scared people will stare. Is it too late to start at 25? He answered every one, not with bro science, not with arrogance, but with truth. It's supposed to be hard. That's why it works. No one's looking at you. They're too busy fighting their own wars. You don't need confidence. You just need to begin. And in helping them, Dean helped himself, because pain, when shared, becomes purpose. That summer, something wild happened. His cousin, a teenager, lanky and awkward and afraid, texted him, "Hey, I want a lift." Can you show me how? Dean stared at the message like it was a mirror, a time machine. He said yes. They met at the gym. Dean watched him struggle under the bar, the same bar that once almost broke him. And with every rep his cousin pushed, Dean felt a piece of his old fear melt. He wasn't just changing himself anymore. He was becoming the kind of man who carried others through the fire. And that was the power he never expected to gain. Not strength, but significance. And yet, there was one more thing left for him to face. Something quiet. Something primal. The place all this began. The thing he had avoided for months. That same towel rack. That same bathroom mirror. That same morning light. He walked in shirtless, stared, and saw not a body, but a man. A man who had chosen to stay. A man who had failed and kept going. A man who no longer asked to be seen because he saw himself. And the mirror. It finally told the truth, but Dean wasn't done. He had climbed the first mountain, and now in the distance, he saw another. They say that once you conquer the hill you thought would kill you, you start to notice the range. And Dean, after nearly a year of lifting, learning, and living through his own undoing, saw it now. He wasn't at the end. He was at the beginning of something real. The strength he once thought he wanted, the kind that showed up in biceps and bench presses, was no longer the destination. It was the vehicle. What he craved now wasn't muscle. It was mastery. Not just of the gym, but of himself. And the next mountain, discipline. Long-term sustainability. A life built not on obsession, but on rhythm. Dean realized this one night staring at his meal prep containers. Chicken, rice, eggs, oats. Again. He wasn't tired of the food. He was tired of being chained to it. His progress had become a prison. He knew if he missed a meal, he panicked. If he missed a workout, he spiraled. He had won the fight against being too small, only to risk becoming something worse, too rigid. So he took a deep breath and did something bold. He took a rest day. On purpose. A full, guilt-free rest day. He walked instead of lifting. He ate pizza instead of rice. He journaled. He meditated. He didn't track a single calorie. And he reminded himself that he was not the body he built. He was the soul that built it. And you know what? Nothing collapsed. The sky didn't fall. He didn't shrink. He didn't fail. Instead, he felt free. That moment, quiet, defiant, beautiful, was the real transformation, the one you can't photograph, the one that doesn't trend, the one that doesn't fit neatly into before and after frames. Because here's what Dean had learned after a year of trying to change how skinny he was. The most radical change you can make isn't to your body. It's to your belief about your worth. And when that belief changes, everything else follows. 1 year ago, Dean stood in a mirror and whispered, "This ends now." Now he whispered something else. "This begins now." Because it does. Every morning, every choice, every time he picks up the weight, not just the one made of iron, but the one made of expectation, pressure, identity, and fear. He lifts it, he owns it, and he teaches others how to do the same. Not with perfect advice, but with lived truth. Because Dean knows now you don't have to be huge to take up space. You don't have to be loud to make an impact. You don't have to be seen to matter. You just have to show up again and again and again. One more rep, one more breath, one more decision to keep becoming. And in the echoes of that quiet consistency, you become unshakable. You become someone your past self would look up to. You become fire. If this story moved you, if you saw yourself in Dean's struggle, or you've ever stood in front of your own mirror and wondered if change is possible, let me remind you it is. And you don't have to do it alone. Subscribe to the channel for more stories like this. Stories about real people, raw transformation, and the kind of growth that doesn't just change bodies, but changes lives. If this helped you like the video, share it with someone who needs it. And remember, your journey isn't over. It's only just begun.